The mystery of wealth is in the history of wealth. The mystery of wealth is in the history of wealth. So that if you understand the history of how wealth was created in previous ages, you'll understand the mystery of how you can go about creating wealth today. And that's what today's Kingdom Conversation is all about. The new way to wealth. Let's get to it.
Oh yeah, I know what you got. You know what I got. Yeah, we all got potential. Yeah, we may not all have money, but we all got potential. Potential to be anything that we can dream. Yeah, so get ready. Here we go. Whoever dreamed that I could be a great example of what man can achieve. If he believes and pursues that dream in time, potentially, whoever knew that I could go to any place my heart says so. I'm gonna make it deep inside, I know, in time, potentially.
So, welcome to today's Kingdom Conversation with me, your host, Bishop Wayne Malcolm, the Business Bishop. Always excited and delighted to be a part of your life and legacy. Celebrating everyone who has subscribed to the channel, encouraging those who are yet to subscribe to go ahead and subscribe because we are posting some epic content on a weekly basis and you don't want to miss it. Just go back through the channel, you'll see. We're trying to cover as many subjects as we can when it comes to your call to the marketplace. It is a kingdom conversation for kingdom citizens and those who identify as citizens of the kingdom of God. Okay, so today I'm going to take you behind the scenes. I'm going to take you into one of our special webinars. And it was all about the new way to wealth. Now, of course, the mystery of wealth. And when I say the mystery, I mean like how does a person go about creating wealth, particularly generational wealth, right? So that's somewhat a mystery for most people today. But that mystery is in the history, so that if you understand how wealth was created in previous economic eras, you will understand exactly what it takes to go about creating wealth today. What is beautiful is that there is an unprecedented opportunity, unparalleled opportunity for ordinary individuals to become wealthy, all right? But you have to understand the mystery. So that's what today's session is all about. I'm going to take you into the special webinar. And then at the end of the session, I have a very important announcement for you. Really important announcement, and so you want to stick around till the end. We've made some changes to our ecosystem and you don't want to miss out. So stick around till the end. For now, let's go right in to the new way to wealth. And all the people said amen. Please do shout your amen in the chat box. In the chat box, which I encourage you to utilize as your virtual voice. So this is the new way to wealth and path to prosperity. And I'm going to kick off tonight with the mystery of wealth. There is a mystery when it comes to wealth. I'm going to talk about income generating assets, the 4 T's, the new age, the new opportunity, and the new way. So the mystery of wealth is in the history of wealth. The mystery of wealth is in the history of wealth. And I call this the mystery of wealth because I think that most people have literally no idea how to go about creating wealth. And certainly the school system does not teach us how to create wealth. In fact, subjects related to wealth creation are mysteriously missing from the curriculum, so that we can go through the entire school system knowing little or nothing about money, knowing little or nothing about leadership, knowing little or nothing about the commercial world and arena, knowing little or nothing about investments, or becoming an investor. And all of the things that would give us an advantage, a financial advantage, seem to be missing from the educational system. And the reason it's missing is because the educational system was never meant to create a level playing field in which people who had aspiration, passion, conviction, discipline could go ahead and live out their dreams, realize their goals. It was never made for that. It was actually a factory for the mass production of a new kind of slave, the mass production of a new kind of slave, a passive slave, an obedient slave, a voluntary slave, and and a slightly knowledgeable slave when it came to the component part that they would play in society. Um, but a slave nonetheless, and typically a slave to wages, a wage slave. And so this was a factory designed to mass produce wage slaves. And a lot of people look at the education system and say, well, it's broken, we need to fix it. When actually the educational system is not broken, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is churning out millions of miseducated, misinformed, misdirected, and misled individuals who have no clue as to what it takes to become wealthy, to become independent, to become financially secure, stable, strong. No clue whatsoever, because all of the subjects that would give them that advantage are mysteriously missing from the curriculum. And they are not missing accidentally, they are missing intentionally and quite deliberately. And so what we have is this mystery of wealth. But if you want to understand the mystery of wealth, it is in the history of wealth. So if you look at how wealth was created in each age, in each era, in each economic age and era, you will understand exactly how wealth can be created today. Woo! Someone need to be screaming in the chat box. I think that's a brilliant introduction. So here goes. In every economic age, wealth belonged to a privileged few. So the idea that everyone's going to be wealthy, everyone can be wealthy, I guess theoretically everyone can be wealthy because God has created this abundant world in which there's more than enough for everyone to have more than enough. But in reality, very few people are going to be wealthy. And you are going to have to decide whether you're going to be among the few who do or among the many who talk, whether you are going to be among the few who enjoy or the many who complain. Because in every economic age, wealth belonged to a privileged few. Who were the few? The few were the owners of the assets. The owners of the assets. I want you to write that word, that phrase in the chat box, owners of the assets. The few who were wealthy were the few who owned the assets. And they owned those assets by way of inheritance. Either they inherited ownership of these assets or by war. So they literally invaded other territories and took assets by force, or they purchased those assets, or they were gifted assets. Perhaps a king would gift land to someone who had served the kingdom well. So in every economic age, wealth belonged to a privileged few. The few were the owners of the assets, and they owned assets by way of inheritance, war, purchase, or gift. The way to wealth in every economic age has always involved the ownership of income generating assets. Income generating assets. So you had to own an asset that generated income for you. If you think of income as water, okay, then the wealthy were those that owned wells. Okay, they dug and they owned wells. And the well was an income generating asset. So those who owned the assets generated the income and they became wealthy. And I want us to understand what an income generating asset is. And perhaps in order to understand this, you need to think about the difference between the source and the supply. the source and the supply. So this is the farm versus the food. Okay. So those who became wealthy owned the farm and not just some food. It's the difference between the trees and the fruits. Okay. So if you were to be wealthy, you had to own the tree because the tree was the income generating asset. It's the difference between the well and the water. If you wanted to be wealthy in every economic age, you had to own the well. You had to own the well because the well was your income generating asset. The difference between the boat and the fish. Okay. So, of course, you've heard the saying, and we'll probably say it later on: give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, you're going to feed him for life. But actually, if you give him a boat, a net, and a skill set, what you've given to him is an income generating asset. So, so the wealthy owned the boats, right? And the poor ate fish. Where did they get the fish from? They got the fish from the people who owned the boats, the people that had the boats, the nets, and the skill sets. The poor came to them, cap in hand, or with whatever little money they had to purchase the fish. So the boat became an income generating asset. And it's the difference between the source and the supply. The wealthy value the source while the poor value the supply. The wealthy value the source while the poor value the supply. And I think that's really important because I guess what we're describing here is a value system and a way of thinking. A value system and a way of thinking. See, being wealthy or being poor, being rich or being poor has more to do with a state of mind than it does to do with with your bank balance. Okay, your state of mind is more important than your bank balance. And the state of mind of people who became wealthy in every economic era and every economic age was that they valued the source over the supply. So they said, okay, look, we need food. We need food, but what we want is a farm. We need fruits, but what we want is trees and groves. We want water. We need water, but what we want is a well. We need fish, but what we really want is a boat. We need the supply, but what we want is the source. And when you begin thinking this way, you are now thinking rich thoughts, right? You're thinking rich thoughts because you're thinking, you know what? I need an income generating asset. I don't just need to be a consumer. I need to become a producer. I don't just need to be a buyer. I need to be a seller. And in order to become a seller, I need to have something. I need to own something, whether it's the farm, whether it's the trees, whether it's the well, whether it's the boat. But I need an income generating asset. If this is making sense, somebody shout in the chat box, because you can go through the entire school system and not understand the simple principle that actually you can only create wealth by owning income generating assets. So that if you have a goal, if you have a financial goal, okay, or if you have a vision for your future, for your life, your lifestyle, and your legacy, that vision must include the acquisition and ownership of income generating assets. Because unless you own the income generating assets, you're at the mercy of those who do own them. So what is the difference between an asset and a liability? Because the opposite of the asset is the liability. What's the difference between an asset and a liability? Okay, so here goes. An asset is anything that makes you money or that appreciates in value over time. So if it makes money for you, it's an asset, or if it appreciates in value over time so that you can sell it for more than you bought it, then it is considered an asset. That's an asset. So I want you to think about assets as things that make money for you or that appreciate in value over time. A liability, on the other hand, is anything that costs you money or that loses value over time. So, you may decide, look, I've made some money. I'm going to buy myself a luxury car. I'm going to buy myself a sport car. I'm going to buy myself the latest car, and I'm going to buy that. Okay. The problem is that the minute you drive the car off of the forecourt of the garage, it has lost value. And so you can no longer sell it for what you bought it. You have to sell it for less than you bought it. In this respect, the car, as much as it feels good, is actually a liability. It's not an asset. It's taking money from you, or it is depreciating in value over time. And again, this is important because you can go through the entire school system, entire educational system, and not even understand the difference between an asset and a liability, so that you end up working hard in order to purchase liabilities. So that money is always moving away from you. Wealth is always evading you because you're working hard to earn money that you're going to spend on liabilities. Whereas the rich mind, the wealthy mind says, I want to earn money so I can buy assets, so I can buy things that make even more money for me or that appreciate in value over time. So you'll find that the rich mind turns around and says, okay, look, I'm going to make some money because I want to start investing in residential real estate. And then the idea is, look, I'm going to buy this home, I'm going to do it up, and I'm going to put it out for rent. So they put it out on the rental market. So they're earning an income from the rent, and they're also retaining the asset of the house, which is appreciating in value over time. And so they're going to do that once, they're going to do it twice, they're going to do it 3 times, 4 times. And before you know it, what they have now is this income generating asset, because they've decided that what I want to do with my money, with my disposable income, is buy assets, right? So wealthy people are looking for investments, opportunities to grow their money, and not simply to spend their money, waste their money, or simply save their money. They want to grow their money, and they know the only way to grow it is to buy income generating assets. So difference between an asset and a liabilities. I want to break it down a little bit deeper and say that anything that makes more money than it costs you to buy is an asset. So if it cost me X amount to buy, but it makes more than that for me, then this was not an expense. This was an investment. It's very important that you start differentiating between expenses and investments, because otherwise you're going to be hesitant when it comes to investments. You're going to avoid making investments because in your mind it's an expense, it's you're losing money. But actually, the wealthy mind, the rich mind, has always considered the purchasing of assets as investments, not as expenses. So if it makes more money than it costs you to buy, it is an asset. If you can sell it for more than it costs you to buy, it's an asset. It's an investment. If it makes money for you, it's an investment. If it makes money but not more than it costs, it is still a liability. Wow. So there are some things you could buy that would make you some money, but you're constantly either breaking even or you're at a loss because it's not making more than it costs you to buy or to maintain. And in this respect, it's a liability. And if you're going to become wealthy, you're going to have to cut your losses, stop buying liabilities, and start investing in assets and start prioritizing assets, income generating assets. Can I hear an amen in the chat box from somebody? Wish I had my sound effects out here. Just going to have to keep them going in my head. Now, this is perhaps one of the most profound insights when it comes to business, and it is that income follows assets. Income follows assets. So when you're building a business, the temptation is to focus entirely on marketing and sales, or to focus entirely on the service you offer or the product that you make, when actually your focus needs to be uh, creating assets in your business, because the more assets that you have in the business is the more income that the business is going to generate. Okay. So, today I recorded a tutorial, right? I recorded a tutorial on how to use a particular software that's particularly designed for authors. Okay. So I recorded that today. And then I thought, you know what? Once I've recorded it and I have it as a recording and edited it, and it was beautiful, right? I realized this is a business asset. It's an asset. Why? Because it allows me to teach many people at one time exactly how to use that software. And, if I didn't record it and just taught every individual that I met how to use the software, then I'd be trading time for money. But by creating the asset, okay, in the form of a simple tutorial, then what I've created is the possibility of scaling that particular training so that more and more people can come into that training, more and more people can buy into that training, and they can come into that training, without compromising my most valuable asset, which is my time. So to generate a bigger income, you must own bigger or better assets. So give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day. Give him a boat, a net, and a skill set, and you'll feed him for life. So his income is going to follow the assets. And I guess the idea here is that the fool looks for an income, but the wise look for an asset. The fool looks for an income, the wise look for an asset. Now, Bishop Wayne, how can you say that with such authority? How can you say that unequivocally? Well, I can say it because the richest man who ever lived, King Solomon, was very clear in his writings that there's something more important to him than riches, than silver, than gold, than power, than status. Something even more important to him. And it boiled down to wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and a good name. And as far as he was concerned, these things were more important. Why? Because they generate income. Okay? As opposed to, things, simply using income to buy things that satisfy temporary needs. These things were more important because they would generate the income. So if I have these, then the income is guaranteed. But if I have money without these, the money's going to run out. So income follows assets. And if you're a fool, all you're looking for is an income. But if you're wise, what you're looking for is assets that generate income for you and that generates income while you sleep. Someone need to be screaming in the chat box. It is impossible to become wealthy without the ownership of assets. So you don't have to take my word for that. You can just ask any wealthy person. You can read the autobiographies of any person that became wealthy. You can look at the history of wealth, and you'll see it's impossible to become wealthy without the ownership of assets. The difference between those who buy the food and those who own the farm. Like, if you're going to become wealthy, you cannot spend the rest of your life buying the food, right? Working a job that pays you enough to buy the food. You'll never become wealthy. You literally have to own the farm. And so that starts, you know, in your mind as a way of thinking, as a paradigm shift, as an understanding that now informs your goals, your vision, your values. They're now informed by your understanding that actually I'll never become rich by working for money to buy food, but I will become rich if I can find a way to own a farm. Wow and wow. Is that all right or is that all right? This is the difference between the producers and the consumers. You never become rich as a consumer, but you will become rich if you can become a producer. This is the difference between the buyers and the sellers. Guess what? If you're going to become wealthy, you have to get on the right side of the cash flow, on the right side of the cash flow. What does that mean? It means that money is always moving because it was made to move, because it has no value outside of its movement. Money has no value outside of its movement. Put $100 million on a desert island and it has no value. It only has value when it's moving, when it's being exchanged for goods and services. So cash is, we think of cash flow, the movement of money. We refer to cash as liquid because it was made to move. The issue is that cash is only ever flowing in one direction. It's only ever moving in one direction. That is from the buyer to the seller. Money is moving in one direction only, from the buyer to the seller. Now, every time I sit in a restaurant, I look around and I consider this. I sit in the restaurant, okay, and there may be 50 others, there may be 100 other people in that restaurant. And as I look around that restaurant, I realize that a wealth transfer is taking place. I realize that money is moving, but it's moving in only one direction. It's moving from the buyers to the seller. So it's moving from the consumers to the producers. Okay, that's how it's moving. And it only ever moves in that direction. Someone said, oh no, well, I'm an employee and I earn money every month and I'm not selling anything. I'm not buying anything. I'm just working my job. But actually, you earn money in a job, okay, by selling your services to an employer, selling your time to an employer, and so you get paid because the money only ever moves from the buyer to the seller. When you're running a business, you've taken the limits off of how much money you can earn, because the problem in the job is that you only have one buyer for your services, and that is your employer. You have one buyer for your services, that is your employer. When you own a business, you can have 100 buyers of your service. You can have 1,000 buyers of your service. You can have even more buyers of your services, in which case more cash flows to you. The cash is only ever flowing from the buyer to the seller. So controlling the assets was and is the only way to wealth. If you want to know, is there a true way to? Yeah, the only way to wealth, as can be borne out by the history of wealth, is to control assets. So in the past, you either inherited those assets, you won those assets in a war, you bought those assets, or you were given those assets. So what happened in the past? You either inherited those assets, you won them in a war, or you bought those assets, or you were gifted those assets. And that really explains the history of war, because wars are fought over assets. They're not fought over insults, they're fought over assets. When a king mobilized his army and invaded another territory, it was to control more assets. When people defended their territory, it was to keep control of their income generating assets, like their land or their waters or their airspace, all income generating assets. So, in every economic age, there were four income generating assets as follows. These are the four T's. There was number one, territory, right? If you owned land, territory, that could be exploited for income, and it was an income generating asset because we were an agricultural society, and if you had land, you could farm the land. So territory is the first T. Second T is tools. Okay. Third T was tension. And when I say tension, I really mean supply demand tension. In other words, there's more demand than there is a supply. And whenever there's more demand than there is a supply, then the value of your offer goes up. Someone need to shout your amen. There needs to be market tension around your offer in that there's more demand for it than there is a supply. So in the past, where there was demand for food and not enough supply, that's tension. Okay, if there was demand for boats and nets, more demand than supply, then there was tension. You could go into business, right? Building boats, building nets, because the demand is there. And four was technicians. Technicians were the people um, who worked the farms, the people who built the boats, the people who built the housing, the people, the actual labor or the laborers. So if you were going to be wealthy in previous eras, you needed to own territory, tools. There needed to be tension, but supply demand tension, and you needed to have an army of technicians. And you needed all of those things in order to be wealthy. If you look at the history of wealth, anyone that was wealthy, they owned territory, they had the tools, the tension was there, and they commanded an army of technicians. And without these, in the past, you could not become wealthy. That is until today. Woo! Yep, we are at the dawn of a new age. We are in the midst of a revolution and an evolution of civilization. Literally, we are at the dawn of a new era, a new age. And until you realize that this is a new economy, a new economic era, a new economic age, if you fail to realize that, you're going to be playing the old game by the old rules, aiming at the old goalposts without realizing that the goalposts have moved, the game has changed, the rules have changed, and you cannot win the new game playing by the old rules. We're at the dawn of a new economic age in which the old is at war with the new. Now, that's why we're having so much trouble in our economies. All over the developed world, the economy is an issue. The economy is in trouble. The economy is strained. It's stretched. It's struggling. It's suffering. The reason it's suffering is because of a war between the new age and the old age. Because we can't get enough people fast enough into the new age. And yet the new age is taking over and consuming all of the old industries and all of the old opportunities. And so that's creating a lot of economic instability, a lot of economic uncertainty, because we're at the dawn of a new economic age. So for thousands of years, we lived in the agricultural age, in which the engine of the economy, the drivers of the economy, were fundamentally agricultural. Then at the turn of the last century, we moved into the industrial age, which saw the mass production, the age of mass production, steel, railroads, factories, the factory school system, all of that came out of the Industrial Revolution. And of course, the slave trade was abolished. not simply because of Puritans and people with conscience, right, over the atrocities and the barbarism of slavery, but because it no longer made any economic sense to buy slaves to work the land when actually we were in a new age, which was the industrial age. And what they needed in the industrial age was a new kind of slave. So they created the factory school system to mass produce the new wage slave. That was the industrial age. But guess what? Right now, we are in a revolution because we are at the dawn of the digital age. The digital age. The what? The digital age. I want you all to write in the chat box the digital age. The digital age is the matrix of digital connections, currency, communications, and commerce, in which you literally engage the world, explore the world digitally. Okay, so we explore the world today digitally. You know, if you're going to go on a holiday, what do? You go online, you look it up. If you're going to buy your air tickets, you pull out the phone, you pull out the tablet, you pull out the desktop, you buy the tickets. If you're buying tickets to anything, any kind of event, you're going to do it online. You're going to explore it. You're going to engage it all online. Why? Because we've now moved into this digital age and we're at the dawn of it. And there are some new terms that we're having to get used to and some new ideas that we're having to get used to. And it's very difficult for those of us in my age range who grew up in this kind of manual world, okay, where we understood things, okay? We're now crossing over into this digital age where we're having to unlearn everything and relearn everything just in order to keep up. But let's start over here on the bottom right, apps and applications, okay? Apps, applications, like we're having to get used to this now that there's an app for everything. We're having to utilize our mobile phones for much more than making calls, because there is a world of applications and possibilities and access and information at the touch of a button on our phones. What about AI, artificial intelligence? This is predicted. It's predicted that AI, when it comes to fruition, is going to claim or wipe out 1/3 of the top jobs in virtually every industry. Artificial intelligence is going to be a fact and facet of life in every sector and industry and in every organization that you engage. Artificial intelligence is going to become a part of that. What about the Internet of Things, IoT? The Internet of Things describes the fact that things are now connected to the internet, like your heating system, your cooling system, your fridge, your freezer, like your front door, your garage, so that you can remotely control things in your home from the internet. You can turn things on, you can turn things off, you can see what's on, what's off, you can watch things, you can speak to Alexa, you can give commands. This is the Internet of Things, and the goal is to get to the place where absolutely everything that is manufactured has Bluetooth connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity, and can be remote controlled from anywhere in the world. That's frightening. It's the Internet of Things. What about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, alternatives to the banking system? 6G, right? We now have 5G, but when they roll out 6G, it's predicted it's going to make 5G seem very, very slow because of the speed and the connectivity of 6G. So these are new realities, okay? And we can bury our head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening and hope that it's not, but it is happening. And it's happening. And guess what? The pandemic and the lockdown accelerated accelerated the inevitable. We were inevitably moving into this new digital era, but the pandemic accelerated that. Because we were locked down, we were forced to use applications. We were forced to connect online. Many people discovered Zoom in the pandemic, didn't know anything about Zoom. I was using Zoom before the pandemic, but a lot of people never heard of Zoom, but everyone now is familiar with Zoom and Google Meets and all of these ways to connect with people because we were forced to do that. And it accelerated the inevitable. Now, are there dangers in the digital age? Yes, there are. I've got four of them listed here. The digital age will usher in unprecedented skepticism. Unprecedented skepticism. What does that mean? It means we're going to be very skeptical about who we're dealing with in this digital age. And we're skeptical. We're skeptical now of an email, of a text message, of an offer, of an opportunity, of an advert. We're skeptical. Okay? The digital age will usher in unprecedented levels of fraud and cyber threats. And so there's good reasons why we are skeptical. And the good reasons why we are skeptical is that there are very real cyber threats and fraudsters out here making claims and false offers, and it's very organized. Number three, the digital age will usher in a new feudal system with nobles and serfs. In other words, they're going to become new lords and new peasants. And finally, the digital age will create a war of words, a clash of ideas, and a battle for beliefs. Now, we're seeing that particularly around politics, right? Politics in every country right now is a battlefield, a minefield. It's the war of words, the clash of ideas, the battle for beliefs. Years ago, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have these things, right, that allowed for millions of people to become journalists. The war of words and the clash of ideas was not as intense. Today, it's absolutely intense, not just in the arena of politics, but also in the arena of religion. And there are several other arenas in which the digital age has ushered in this ideological warfare. So I'm going to turn now to exactly how you can create wealth in this new age. I'm going to start by saying that the formula for failure, first thing you need to do is realize what the formula for failure is. So you will fail in the digital age if you, number one, fail to realize what age you're actually in. If you fail to realize that you're now in a digital world in which people explore and engage the world digitally, you're going to fail. Okay? If you have no plan to move your business online, to utilize online tools in order to market and sell your offers and opportunities, if you fail to realize that, you're going to fail in the digital age. Number two is the failure to focus on what you can control. Right? Because with all of these news headlines, you're going to end up focusing on things you can't control. So your brain space is full of what's happening in Ukraine. It's full of what's happening in the Middle East. It's full of what's happening in other parts of the world, or it's filled with whatever the headlines want to give you. Well, if you focus on things you cannot control, that is a formula for failure. So what you need to focus on is the things you can control, and that is a formula for success. Number three is to fail to claim your own digital territory. Woo! If you fail to claim your own digital territory, by the way, your digital territory is called A domain. Oh, help me now. It's called a domain, right? So the failure to have your own domain and all of its subcategories in terms of your social presence, the failure to claim your own digital territory is the formula for failure in the digital age, because digital territory is now called a domain. And guess what? We're now moving into kingdom language, dominion language, uh, original language. So, what if I told you that God has already given to every kingdom citizen an income generating asset that is future proof and fail safe? We'll try it again. What if I told you that God has already given to every kingdom citizen an income generating asset that is future proof and fail safe? So you don't have to buy it, you don't have to steal it, you don't have to win it in a war, you don't have to buy it with money. It's yours and no one can take it from you. Wow and wow. That is exciting to me. It's exciting to me to think that actually I don't have to go to war to win someone else's income generating assets. I don't have to hope that parents left me an estate or income generating assets. I don't have to go and buy someone else's, because God has already given to every one of us an income generating asset. And if you'd like to know what it is that God gave to every one of us, then I want you to shout in the chat box, I want to know. I want to know. Yep, you're already in that chat box saying, tell me, I want to know. I want to know. Love it, love it, love it. Great. So here goes. What's in a name? What's in a name? Proverbs 22, verse 1. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. Hold on a second. Why should I choose a good name over great riches? Why should I choose favor over silver and gold? Why? Because your good name is the asset that will generate great riches, and favor is the asset that will generate silver and gold. But if you have great riches, silver and gold, without the good name and without favor, that silver and gold is going to run out. Or you're going to have to acquire it by war, by aggression. You're going to have to acquire it by stealing, by fraud. No, we don't need to do that, because if we have the good name and we have favor, if there's favor on your good name, then that will be the asset that generates great riches and silver and gold. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 1 says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Okay, that's really saying better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. That your legacy will be better than your inheritance. That's really what it's saying here. When it says the day of death is better than the day of one's birth, your legacy should be better than your inheritance. In other words, you should, if you were not born into a rich family, or if you did not come from a rich family, then a rich family must come from you. Somebody need to scream in the chat box. If you did not come from a rich family, then a rich family must come from you. That's what it means. The day of death is better than the day of one's birth. Your legacy outweighs your inheritance, what you inherited at birth, but what you leave at death should be so much. There should be such a big difference, because if you didn't come from a rich family must come from you. But according to Ecclesiastes 7 verse 1, your good name is better than precious ointment, which is a metaphor for healing, medicine, perfume, beauty, all of the anointing, the name. So what is your name? So in modern terms, your name is your personal brand. So I want you all to write in the chat box, my personal brand. Your name is your personal brand. And in the digital age, we don't do business with companies anymore. We don't trust companies anymore. We do business with the people that we know, we like, and we trust. That's what's happening. And that's going to happen more and more and more. We're not going to do business with any company if we don't know who's behind it, who's running it, who owns it, who am I dealing with. I need to know who I'm dealing with, because we're only going to do business in the future with the people that we know, like, and trust, which is why your name becomes an income generating asset.
Hey friend, I trust this training is blessing you right now and that it gave you a glimpse into our world. It's an epic world of like minds that share our vision and values. The full session, together with replays from all our webinars, is available in our private members community. It's called the New Breed Community and is an exclusive online network where the partners in our mission connect, share, learn, and grow. If this material resonates with you, then partner with Bishop Wayne today to unlock a world of resources, connections, and coaching. You can join our community today with a one-time membership fee and gain instant access. Click the link.
Hey, I'm Bishop Wayne Malcolm, author, coach, and founder of the Epic Kingdom Network. If you've ever felt like something's missing in what you've been taught about Christianity, you're not wrong. Most of us were taught that heaven and the hereafter are the goal, prize, and sole objective of the faith. But the original message of Christ taught us to engage, to influence, and to transform the world. Believe it or not, Jesus didn't die to get us into heaven. He died to get heaven into us, and then through us into the earth. What if I told you that Christianity was never meant to be a religion, but rather a relationship and a global revolution, a divine intervention, not a man-made institution? The original message and mission of Christ was hijacked, diluted, distorted, and replaced with a religion. My new ebook, Kingdom Theology for Kingdom Citizens, is not just another devotional, it's a call to action. A bold reintroduction to the original message of Christ, a message of dominion, not escapism, of transformation, not tradition. You'll learn what it means to rule and reign with Christ, to steward wealth with purpose, to influence government, education, culture, and business as an ambassador of heaven. This book will shift your lens, stir your spirit, and set you on course with divine clarity. And right now, for a limited time, I'm giving you free access to the digital and audiobook versions. No cost, no catch. Just click the link in the description, grab your copy, and step into clarity. What if everything you've been taught about money, prosperity, and God's intention for the earth has been too small, too narrow, and totally disconnected from the original plan? What if your struggle has never been about your potential, but about your perspective? And what if the real economy, the one God designed before the foundations of the world, has been waiting for you to discover it? Well, that's why I wrote Kingdom Economics. And before this book is released to the world, I want to give you an opportunity to get ahead of everyone else, to join the waiting list and to be among the first to access a revelation that is going to redefine how you see wealth, work, stewardship, and purpose. Kingdom Economics is not another book about money. It's a prophetic blueprint. It's the rediscovery of God's original purpose for global prosperity, the prosperity of nations, families, and kingdom citizens. It'll show you that God has a purpose, a plan, and a process for your increase, and that everything He designed for you begins with alignment, not anxiety. From Eden to Abraham to Christ, this book reveals a pattern. God never intended scarcity. God never mandated smallness. God never glorified survival. He created you for dominion, productivity, influence, and generational impact. But here's the important part. The book is not yet released, and before we make it available publicly, I want to open the doors for those who are hungry, ready, and positioned to join the waiting list. And to reward early action, I'm giving something special. The first 50 people who join the waiting list and purchase the book on release day will receive the full audiobook version completely free. That's right, buy the physical or digital book on release day, and if you're among the first 50 buyers from the waiting list, the professionally narrated audiobook is yours at no cost. This will allow you to not only read the revelation, but also hear it, meditate on it, and carry it with you as you rise into a new economic reality. Join the waiting list today, be among the first to receive Kingdom Economics when it launches, and secure your chance to receive the audiobook absolutely free. This book will challenge you, stretch you, correct you, elevate you, and align you with God's original design for your life. Your future is calling, your assignment is calling, and creation is groaning for what you will build next. Join the waiting list now and be one of the first 50 to claim the free audiobook when Kingdom Economics is released. Hi, I'm Bishop Wayne. According to the Bible, there are only two paths to prosperity. One involves the pursuit of peace, and the other is led by peace. If you could, which would you choose? I would choose the path that is led by peace and reject the one that promises peace at the end. One is driven by a material worldview, while the other is informed by a spiritual worldview. Let me explain. What if money at its root is a spiritual substance freely given by God to the believer? What if the marketplace is actually driven by faith, not finances? Meaning, what if what drives the economy isn't money at all, but rather beliefs? What if creativity wasn't about making something new, but about drawing something hidden out of what's already been given? What if effective selling is not about scripts, persuasion, or coercion, but rather the art of igniting beliefs, awakening consciousness, and shifting how people see what's possible and available? What if the real determining factors for success aren't the tangibles like branding, marketing strategy, sales technique, or modern apps, but rather the intangibles like core beliefs, standards, and internal philosophy? What I'm sharing with you is a spiritual worldview that gives the ultimate advantage for entrepreneurs and wealth creators. The truth is, you can have all the pieces of the puzzle together, and yet the picture has no soul or life. If you are doing all you know, but not getting all you want, the problem is not with your doing, it is with your being. The answer is not to do more, but rather to be more so you can do less and get more. With God's economy, being comes first, then out of your highest being comes your best doing, and out of that, your greatest rewards. There is a spiritual way to build, create, and multiply, and I will unpack it with detail and precision over 4 days at the Power to Get Wealth Challenge. Click the link to find out more.